Welcome to my channel. I'm Tina Divine. I'm a real estate broker. Welcome to the Tina Divine Show, where we are the realest in real estate. Today, I wanted to talk about rent versus owning. It's an ongoing argument that is very subjective, which is why we will never get a definitive answer because it's subjective. It's based on the individuals you're speaking to. But I wanted to talk about rent versus own from a specific perspective. So is it better to be a renter or a owner or an owner when money is low, when you've been laid off, when you've been fired, when you don't have the same cash flow as you've once had? So I also did a video about one of the members from NSYNC where he purchased a property, and when he purchased the property, they were making all this money. They were touring, they were putting out albums, they were singing, and eventually they stopped, and the group came to an abrupt stop, and the money stopped flowing in, and he found himself in a very humbling situation. So I kind of wanted to talk about that. What happens, or what's the comparison of rent versus own when money is low?
I need some money immediately.
Because things take on a different look, it takes on a different feel when money is low. So a lot of people don't know that the real estate market is pushed through, the real estate market is supported by the job market. So more people are working, more people are moving, more people are buying homes, more people are renting apartments.
Where we're moving on up to the side.
But when the job market slows down, or when there are more people unemployed, the real estate market is affected because less people have money to pay rent, less people have money to move, less people have money to buy, to sell their home and buy another home.
We have a problem. We have a problem.
So the real estate market is really affected by the job market and the workforce. So when you are a tenant, right? Imagine we have two families. One family are tenants. The other family are property owners. They both work at the same company. They both get laid off.
No!
Now the tenant probably has about 30 days. And that landlord is going to, probably don't even have 30 days. And the landlord is going to start the eviction process.
I lost my job 2 days ago and am now facing a little residency issue.
Now, the homeowner, and this is the biggest benefit, I think, the homeowner has 120 days before the foreclosure process is even started.
We're okay.
So we have something called the Credit Financial Protection Bureau, and they're the ones that kind of oversee how lenders treat consumers, right? So if it was up to lenders, they'll be charging you whatever amount of interest rates on loans. But because of the Credit Financial Protection Bureau, they put in certain laws and guidelines and acts that lenders have to abide by, and it's for the protection of the general public, consumers. So because of the Credit Financial Protection Bureau, if you are a homeowner, you can be up to 120 days delinquent before they start the foreclosure process.
What?
Which, in my book, gives ownership an upper hand, right? Because when you are a tenant and you lose your job, that next month you pay your rent this month, but next month the landlord's going to be looking for the rent payment. And if you don't have the rent payment next month, the landlord can put you into court and start the eviction process.
Now I'm a homeless person.
Now, the eviction process doesn't happen overnight. It is you do have a time frame before you go to court, and then even when you go to court, you can talk to a judge and tell the judge give the judge your position, and maybe the judge will give you extra time or whatever in the apartment. But when you are a homeowner, you have almost 4 months to be delinquent before they even start the foreclosure process.
I love it.
Also, because of the Credit Financial Protection Bureau, they have implemented other options that lenders have to provide homeowners, such as a way to modify their loan. Maybe you can do a forbearance, maybe put a payment on the back of the loan or something like that. The CFPB created loss mitigation practices that lenders have to abide by to help homeowners stay in their home longer. They also extended the foreclosure process. So if it wasn't for the Credit Financial Protection Bureau, lenders would be foreclosing on homes like this.
I'm definitely moving to Canada.
They have slowed down the foreclosure process to allow homeowners more time to figure out, what am I going to do to make sure that I can make my mortgage payments? So allowing a homeowner to stay in their property for up to 4 months before the foreclosure process starts give a homeowner a leg up, gives them about 4 months of time to figure out their next move. If you've been laid off, hopefully you can find another suitable paying position within 4 months and you can get yourself back caught up.
I am back. What it do, baby?
Or you have other options. You can sell the home. If you have enough equity in a home, you can sell it and walk away with some money in your pocket. Or if you don't have any equity in a home and you owe more than the value of the home, you can request a short sale of the property. This way, it doesn't affect your credit. Now, this is where tenants benefit, because a tenant that goes through an eviction can they will have the eviction on their background check, but the eviction doesn't affect their credit.
Oh my God! Wow!
So a tenant can be being evicted in, let's say, January, and by March they could be moving into their own home because the eviction doesn't affect their credit score. Whereas a homeowner, because the mortgage is reflected on your credit report, if you do not pay your mortgage, it's going to have a negative effect on your credit report. And especially if you go through the foreclosure, if the foreclosure process happens, your credit score is going to tank. No! Because a foreclosure is a judgment. Anytime you have a judgment on your credit, it's going to tank your credit. And when I say tank your credit, I mean your credit will drop by probably a few hundred points. Also, they penalize you. Now, money talks. So if you could come up with a large sum of money, you may still be able to buy a property. But to get a mortgage after you've gone through a foreclosure, you may have to wait a few years before you can buy another home. There's always going to be pros and cons to renting versus buying. I feel like, it's definitely subjective to the individuals. I think families with children benefit more from home ownership, while single adults benefit more from renting. Especially if you're not looking at home ownership as a means of wealth building. You're not looking to buy a house to become an investor and become a landlord. If you're just looking to buy a house to have a place to live, I think when you have children, you have a family, it's more beneficial.
First, let's give thanks to our families not being here. Always easier without the family.
There are studies that have been done that says that children who grow up in houses that their family own tend to do better in school, and they tend to become homeowners themselves, and they tend to go further in education, like college, grad school, etc., over children who are raised in rental units. Based off studies that are out there, you can look them up yourself. So there are some definite benefits, especially when you have a family, to home ownership. Also, I feel like home ownership gives you more stability. When you have a family, children get to grow up in a home that they own. They get to become more involved in community. They are, because most times the people who own a home, they're there for years. They're not moving around. As opposed to someone who's renting. You may be a renter and you may move a few times during the time that your children are in school. Your children may have to transfer from one school to another, which can have a negative effect on them.
You think you're too cool for school?
The stability that home ownership provides to families, I think, is unmatched when when you're comparing it to renting. Just the whole idea of having a lease and the lease expires gives a certain level of uncertainty. I once had a family that was living in a house for 30 years. 30 years as tenants. They've had multiple landlords, but this last landlord wanted them out. He wanted the entire house vacant. So they had to uproot their entire family and move to another apartment. And it was a challenge for them because they had been in one place for 30 years. So, for them, that old place was home. It was the only home that the children had ever known. But the uncertainty of having a new landlord is one of the reasons why many people decide to own and prefer home ownership over renting.
You don't have to worry about homeowners insurance. Call Geico.
Geico helps with homeowners insurance?
It just gives you more of a sense of home. This is my home. This is my place. Whereas a rental belongs to someone else. It's your apartment for the time being. So I ask, what are your thoughts on rent versus own? Do you think it's more beneficial to rent and have the freedom to break your lease in case you lose your job? That's something that you can't do when you own. A tenant, if they see that hard times are coming, they could then break their lease, move back in with mom and dad or family until they get on their feet. When you are a homeowner and you see hard times coming, you do have certain grace periods. You do have the option to modify your loan. You do have the option to sell the home. You do have the option to maybe get a short sale. But if none of those options are suitable for you, and you still find yourself facing foreclosure, it's a lot harder to get out of the home. It's a lot harder to get out of that deal.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Whereas as a tenant, it's a lot easier to get out of the deal. I could just break my lease as a tenant and move on to something else. But as a homeowner, you have to go through a whole process to get out of that house, either selling the house, putting it on the market, random people walking through your home, or you could try to do a forbearance or a loan modification. But if none of those things works, then you're kind of stuck with trying to sell the house. And then if that doesn't work, then you're just stuck being taken under by a foreclosure.
That means we're stuck. That pisses me off.
And now your credit is affected and your ability to buy another house is also affected. So rent versus own, I think we will never come to a definitive answer as to which one is best. But I think that it's very subjective, like I said. And I think that when you have a family and children, you have to look out for everyone involved. And I think, and this is just my opinion, when you own as a family, especially a family with small children, it's more beneficial to the family as a whole and not just to one individual. Thank you for watching my show. Stay tuned for many more.